Okay, so now we need to figure out how to do this slimy sludge stuff that's going to permeate the pink area. And I think I have an idea. Now again, it's entirely up to you just to experiment with different options, look and see what works for you and what works for your map. So I'm going to try and draw these sort of bulge-like bubble things that look almost like meat tumors, if you like, and have them have these tendrils which spread out and do something like that. That is going to represent, at least in some way as far as I'm concerned, growing meat cysts, or whatever other disgusting word you might fancy. A meat globule. Not sure what's going on there. So I'll zoom out just now and have a look. They might be too close together at the moment. I can almost imagine the smell of this raw meat in the sun growing away. And if that doesn't give your adventurers something to do for quite some time, I'm not entirely sure what will. It's not an original idea, but it is. Oh, there's a one. Oh, I can almost imagine it bursting with this black blood that blobs everywhere, and quite disgusting. Now we are reversing into our blue territory, which I'm very cognizant of the nose wind in that far. So I'm going to just reflect shortly in terms of whether I think this is working or not. That looked like a sort of meat sacky thing. I am dubious, but at the same time, if we come back in here and we break up shape things, because the map's going to be in black and white, and that's something important to remember, is that if it just looks like a lot of lines and then emerging out of that we start to see shapes and things, I consider that a win. Now we're starting to get something. We're not entirely sure what it is. There's some weird tentacle things happening. I could live with that. I could live with that. I could be quite happy to populate out. It gives a sense of just how vast and how disgusting these fields are, and does exactly what we need it to do, which is to create areas of interest around each of these points. This will expand out, and hopefully we'll have these little corridors that the party will be able to move through if they're trying to get to the city or wherever it is that village that they're going to be heading to. So I'm going to systolate the map. Point out the music you're hearing in the background is BattleBard's music, battlebards.com. Go and grab some amazing gaming music from them. Use it all the time. Right, so there is our bile-covered terrain. I think that's quite cool. I think that's something a little bit different, certainly for my players. Well, certainly a great addition to the map. And I know it seems perhaps a bit simple by breaking it up into different zones, and you can go and have more zones if you want, but I wanted this to be a fairly small map. I mean, if we look at the terrain here, we're probably talking maybe the map is 10 miles across, maybe. If we want it to be bigger, of course we can, but I think that's about right. The village is probably, well, maybe a bit more than that. Depends. It depends entirely on you, but this is not designed to be a large-scale space. They're not multiple kingdoms tucked away in this thing, or maybe there are. Maybe those green circles are actually large cities, and you know, they represent nation states, and this is the lay of the land. So it's up to you, and the scale isn't really determined by the size of the objects either. The tower, the temples, that kind of thing. I mean, those are for demonstration purposes only, in terms of player accuracy. If your players start saying, oh, but the tower's got to be 3 miles tall if this is the city that's a mile wide, none of that sort of nonsense. Okay, so we're still working in the pink area. I think the pink area is important. I'm going to create a new layer again. I'm going to call this Pinko, right, it's Pinko. So it's basically just adding in details. So what we want to do is, in between these areas of growth, we want to add in some more details, some more, I don't think it needs to be hills necessarily, but I think what we want to do is we want to create more points of interest. So yes, the skeletons are interesting, but there needs to be something more in this swamp. It's not just where this creature died. So we've got this little village that we're going to put in there. That's fine. And that sort of area is taken care of. So I'm not too fazed by that. I'd like to put in some kind of, maybe it's a meat packing village or something that's grown up here to take advantage of this situation. I think we're going to put in, and it's not necessarily friendly to our party. So I'm going to put in, it's a camp, let's say. So we're going to make a tent of some kind. Right, that's what I think of when I think of a tent. A little fire spot here. Some flames curling up from it. Another pitch pole here. A little tent there. Maybe like a bedroll. Cooking pot or something. I don't know. I mean, again, this is just for the players to get a sense that there's more to this world than just them. And then we put maybe a spiked barrier all around it. To indicate that it's not a permanent camp of sorts, or it is a camp, but it's not an official town or a city. I'm just putting a spiked palisade barrier around it. So maybe the party can head there. Put a little guard tower. In place here. Put that around there. so we get a sense of camp thing. Okay, so there's a camp of sorts. It's added in some detail. I'm actually going to shift. Oops, wrong thing. Grab Pinko. I'm going to put Pinko a little bit further away out here. Yeah, there we go. I think that's better. Our party can travel from the city to there if they need to. They can come across to there. They can go to the tower. So there's a few little things to explore. I don't know if I really want to populate too much more in here. Oh, I might just in there because it's a bit of a blank spot. No, tell you what, I'm going to put it in here. I put it up here. And it's going to look like, on Pinko layer, it's going to look like a box with beam support over a structure like that, with a little basket. Again, I'm just kind of drawing what comes to mind to represent what I want this structure to be. I have a bit of a wheel here. Is that a wheel? Could be a wheel. I'm not sure. And I'm going to put some weird shaped blocks around it. And carry on our mountain range a bit. I know we're in the pink and we shouldn't be mountaineering, but I think this will just add a little bit. We now have a mine of some kind. Oh. The pit of despair. It's a great moment in the Princess Bride film. Love that movie. Right, so now we've got a bit of a mine thing going on down there. For Pinko to finish it off, I suppose we could add in some detail down here so it doesn't feel like the map was sort of abandoned. But we're going to have the village there. I think we can leave this. I think we can leave this as open space. Again, remember, open space is not just open space. You can add in little ravines and rivulets and things that are just not on the map because they weren't big enough to be important, or at least they weren't considered important enough, or the cartographer just didn't go there. And so he put blank as opposed to elephant convoys because no one would believe elephant convoys. Okay, I'm going to go in here while I'm on Pinko and I'm going to draw in this little city. That will hopefully lure our players out here. We're going to have one of these conical towers that I so enjoy using to represent a tower. The city is big enough to have at least one tower with a window in it. I'll put a roof across here, indicate a long hall. Again, we'll do the shingle thing. Dum dum dum. Now the benefit of not being able to draw, well, no, there isn't much of a benefit of not being able to draw, but the benefit of being able to draw on a computer is that I'm zoomed in at 200% if you hadn't noticed. And that allows me to really come in here and draw very small details like the crenellations on a tower for example. A little window. Allows me to draw very fine detail, which when you then zoom out looks a lot more impressive than the actual drawing itself is. So that's always, for me, a saving grace. Anyway. Put a little roof in here. Now, sometimes I do it 3D, sometimes I don't. It's really just about, does this look like some kind of village where if I was a player and I went there, I would get adventure. Just do that and that. Do this here. And put a wall around it, Jim. Or a moat, or whatever it is that you need to get the players to engage with this space. Maybe another rooftop there. Let's put a little bridge over said whatever this is. Looks more like a moat, I suppose, than anything else. Going to finish off this building. Maybe another roof in there. And then maybe a flagpole. You've got to have a flag. Some round windows. Maybe a gallows, which the players will never see, I doubt, but it does fill it up quite nicely. And then my idea of farm fields, which is why the town is in so much danger. Now zoom out, there's a little town down there, it's got some basic fields around it. Players will say, what's that? Fields. Ah, okay, well at least they're engaging with your map. Quick check, we turn the colors off. Of the cities first and then of the whole map, so we get a sense of what it's starting to look like without that color delineation, and I think it's looking pretty good, actually, considering my limited skill and the fact that we're not nearly finished. We've still got a long way to go, we're still getting there. But again, just to see how the color helps you in terms of creating a fairly balanced map, a fairly decent layout. And for inspiring the imagination to develop and look for interesting solutions to problems that you don't necessarily have when you first start off drawing a map, but which slowly emerge over time. And I think that's something that's all too often forgotten when you're first starting out. As you go, well, we've got to do a thing, so we'll do a thing. Like now I'm going to do the road, and the road gets lost there, doesn't it? And that's going to merge here, and I'll put that little series of hills here. And it would have continued straight in there, but it's lost in the ooze. Control Z, of course, undoes that magic tool. Does nonsense like that mistake I just made there. So there we go. We've got our town. surrounded by this ooze stuff. We've got a basic idea of a road, which starts from down here and then makes its way across. There's no road to this little camp because it's just a camp of some kind. Okay, so I wanted lizard men up here. I now realize I completely forgot about, but we've got this monster, so I don't think we necessarily need the lizard men there. But what we could use is the lizard men further up the map. I'm just going to finish off these mountains quickly. Make a mountain layer. Let's do some basic stuff here. This was supposed to be all mountain until I decided to try and break it up, which the skull does quite nicely. We'll have to think about that a little bit. What I am going to do, though, is carry on the idea of the lizard folk. And I'm going to work in this area up here. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it... Apparently... what did I press? Shift F. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to call it Fjords. The fjords I'm going to put up here. And my reasoning, my thinking, my idea is to break up this area of the map with these wonderfully jagged stretches of basically fjords, which just break up the land with these large patches of water, big lake type expanses, because we've got mountainous terrain, we've got whatever that sludgy terrain is, and now we're going to have this not swamp but waterlogged, if that makes sense, more like a bog than a swamp. I think it'll be quite dramatic and look interesting as well, and give us plenty of locations to add in interesting stuff, because this I am outlining the shape of things to come. Now, the shape of the fjord, and the fjord. I think we're coming around here. See what I'm going to do now. And again, as with the sludge stuff, this is an experiment in terms of shape, and in terms of how my map is going to represent the thing that I wanted to represent, and hopefully convey a sense to the players as well, without it getting lost. So that's that, I think. Hang on, let me just finish up here. So it's almost like maybe fjord is the wrong word for it. Probably is the wrong word. I'll get shouted at by all the Scandinavians. Right, now I'm going to go into the fjord, and I'm going to make it that much more confusing by now drawing more shapes in it. So it really is this shattered, rent space of, is that land or is it water? Is it, what is it? And I think it should prove visually very interesting, at the very least. You must remember to add in some structures here to inspire the players to come out to play in our fjords that we've so so decided to forge and create and play with. So I'm actually going to do that right now. What I'm going to do, let's just check in comparison to our green city. I'm not going to create a circle, thank you very much. Control B. The mine's there, so we don't want anything in the immediate vicinity. I think something over here may be the best, or over there actually. Let's do it over there. And let's do some kind of ziggurat. With a ziggurat in the fjords, what would you build if you were in the fjords? You'd build a longhouse, wouldn't you? I mean, that's what we associate. So let's do a ziggurat for the players to come and discover. We'll put strange and mystical writings upon it. Right there, and then there's the next step. Next step. Mind-bending stuff drawing and did I do it right? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Come in there and then go to the point. Then come up, come up, come up. Join the lines. Our ziggurat is slowly making progress. No. Control Alt Z to undo the second level's worth of commands, which I had to do there. Alright, I think we're finished with this pie. And more mystical writings, a couple of gook, shapes and sounds and patterns. Alright, good. There we go. And then continuing with our theme of the fjord, we will fjord around it. Put a little bit of river in there. So this can give us some very interesting water encounters, what type of creatures live here, maybe what we do here to give a sense that this is not a natural or it's a holy space, as we'll put these, I'm calling them, and you can interpret them as you like, skulls on sticks. To give them importance. And just finish off down here. Maybe we need a village of the people that worship at that ziggurat. Maybe we can put that village here. And we'll connect them by giving them the same skull motif on a stick and a longhouse. This will be a longhouse, trust me. Boy, is it a bad drawing. But again, that benefit of when you zoom out, not all is forgiven, but a lot is forgiven. So there's our longhouse, which represents an entire village's worth of lunatic supporters, or maybe they're not, depending on what story you're going to tell. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. island in there. Yeah, that's what we've got over here. Now, of course, you have to keep track of what is land and what is water. But again, it's the benefit of you physically drawing this. You are a little bit more familiar with the material, and so have that ability to remember, oh yes, this is the outer line, this is the inner line, this is what I was thinking here. Certainly given our players so much to look at and think about in terms of different terrain types to go and explore. There's that huge growth thing that's happening. I think that's going to be a lot of fun for the guys to try and work through and see what are the ramifications to that growth. Maybe they try and grow some in a jar and it starts to turn into an aberration, or it starts to ask them to help it, or who knows. Well, hopefully you will, once you've decided on a course of action. That's the other thing, is you can draw stuff, have some ideas around it, and then leave it to mull in your mind to test it out and say, well, oh yeah, this is a good idea. No, maybe it shouldn't be growth. Maybe it should be something is trying to resurrect the beast by growing on it. You know, you don't just have to sit with your original decision. Nobody knows what that original decision was, only you. It's entirely possible for you to change it as you see fit, and no one will be able to judge you. They'll just think that you've been working at this map for eons, and what a mind you must have to have planned it all out so far in advance. Well, as you've seen in the space of a few hours, this map's evolved from inverted geography terrain and lava fields to fjords and living swamps, which I think is indicative of exactly what I'm saying. Things change, and so should we. And to pretend that you don't change your mind, I think is a little bit short-sighted, actually, to be perfectly honest with you. I think if you're willing to explore ideas and you're open to new ideas, well, all the better for you. Because you'll be able to have better ideas, and you can always come back to them as well. You might say, oh, I don't really like that idea. Think about it, not come up with a better solution, have to play the game, and well, bingo. If you go using the idea that you come up with, you may not have been totally happy with it. Well, at least it's an idea and the story can continue, and you can think up new maps and new ways later on if you're so inclined. Right, let's have a look at that now. I think that represents quite a nice little piece of shattered territory. Lots of water in it. Lots of little islands for the guys to go and get lost on. That ziggurat stands out quite nicely with, yeah, kind of look like skulls. Not sure exactly what they are, but there again, it doesn't matter. So there we go there. Now just to connect the plumbing. This would have a river flowing into it. Now, because it's black and white, my rivers, I have decided, will have this sort of ribbon-like look. This is an outflow. Just also separates it from the road, which is just a single line. Right, so we've got that. This is a point that can turn into another river. Again, this idea here is a chance for the players to experience different terrain, but because they've got the map, it's a chance for them to really plan ahead and say, all right, well, we're going into some horrendous water zones. How do we dress appropriately? What can we expect to find in there? All those kinds of very important questions, I think, anyway, can now be asked and hopefully answered by the players, and provide for some fun experiences. I thought you didn't. I thought you didn't, did you? No, you didn't finish it up. All right, well, you're going to pair up with this river at that juncture there, which I'll go and clean up. And you're going to join in there. Right, so we've got you done. We need to just sort this confluence out. Carry on. That way. Alright. Full speed if you zoom in. Don't be lazy like me. If you've got to zoom in, zoom in. Okay. So, there is that. Not entirely sure if I want to leave it barren like that. I might put trees in. I'm not sold on the idea. Again, turning off color will help determine the look on the map. And without the color, I'm actually 100% happy with that look. I think that'll work out. That'll work out quite nicely. Now we come back with our color and move up here. You need this river. To continue its journey. Zoom in, please, you lazy swine. Clean up on L4. Again, the minus key is to shrink the pool down. I think that was a mountain. Just finish off those. Right. Good. Okay, so we've got that town to draw in. Right. Fjords are done. I'm happy with that. They're not swamps, that's the important thing. We're covered in snow and ice, and that's panels are deep and dangerous, which could be quite fun. Could be quite fun indeed. So I'm going to put forest in here, heavy forest in there, and in here to give us that sort of old alpine feeling. And I'll catch you again when I have done that. Right, so if you have a look here, you'll see that the trees are now mostly done in most of the areas that I'm wanting to put trees in. I thought about putting them in between here, but I'm not convinced. I might do that later on. I'll have to have a look. Now, if we go back to our city outline, and again, this is why I like it, is that we're going to have our major city area there with some plantations or fields or things around to support them from a financial perspective. But out here is this great big vast space where, apart from that circular tomb thing, we haven't got very much else. So I want to put something in here, but I'm not entirely sure what. Again, by zooming out and by bringing in that color map, you can have a look and see, well, it's supposed to be more of the same, but perhaps we were too eager in having only 3 sections. Maybe we need to have another section. I'm not sure. I'll think about it as I go along. I'm thinking maybe we can put something in here, but again, one doesn't want to overpopulate with curious things. The Fords are giving us all the water experience. This weird sludgy stuff is giving us all sorts of other experiences. This is going to be open fields and nice happy spaces because that's what we said we wanted. So I'm not sure what to put up here. Something different that's going to get the players' attention. Maybe we can do a curve of trees here, and then in that top space we'll put something like an abandoned keep or something. I'm not sure. I'll have to really ponder it and come back to it. But for now, I carry on with trees. This is that pathway through the mountains that we came across. I'm going to do something here to emphasize it so that the players really get a sense that this is definitely an entrance way. So I'm going to put trees on the side because that's the motif of this area, is these big trees, these forests everywhere. On this side, definitely. And I mean, forests are always fun things. You can have all sorts of things that the trees hide that the maps don't reveal, lurking about in forests for your players to go and explore and get attacked by and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put a line of trees there just to fill in the gap. And then on this side, I wonder what I should put in here. I'm thinking that we need a little town or a hamlet. How far away are we from the main city? No, we're not too far away. But it's on the other side of the river, so maybe a little hamlet in here would work. I'm going to go back to creating another layer, and we're going to call this hamlet. What happens in this hamlet? I don't know. That's something that we'll have to think about. I draw the main structure. I'm sort of thinking of an A-frame type building with low walls and stairs up to it, a little chimney on it maybe, and some battle crenellations just to show that it's got some defensive capabilities. Another high-pitched roof in there, trying to emulate to a degree the forest as well, so that the players get a sense that this isn't just another structure. It's actually part of the forest system and is designed to be here. And then I'm going to put a great big gate. Yeah, nice big obvious gate. Portcullis, maybe. Right, there's our portcullis. Another little house in the background. So it's a little hamlet nestled, and I'll continue the forest on this side so we get this real sense that they are this hamlet in amongst the trees, guarding the passageway, the pathway into town and into the rest of the province area. And I've had an idea for what we can do up in the north. It's a little bit cliched. Well, okay, it's a lot cliched, but it is something that allows us quite a lot of latitude if we set it up properly. And by set it up properly, I mean introduce it to the players properly, in a non-stereotypical way. This is very much reliant on your world setting, but I'm thinking that we're going to have in this realm, because most fantasy worlds have the ability to resurrect dead players, and that's all good and well, and they often need that ability to carry on playing the game. But in a world like that, if you have a criminal, a master criminal who's got vast resources and is absolutely diabolically evil, a prince, for example, or a mad emperor, they're going to have the capacity to get resurrected, which effectively makes any form of punishment, apart from eternal incarceration, which is expensive, difficult, time-consuming, and can also be overcome, it makes any kind of resurrection or death penalty null and void. Oh, we're going to cut your head off. Ooh, that's inconvenient. It'll take my priest 7 seconds to get my body back. Now, a lot of resurrection spells say, well, you need a bit of this, or it's got to be done within 5 days. You know, you've got to bring the body back within 5 days, or whatever the case might be. But what if we had out in the north there a prison that specializes in obliteration of the body? So in other words, prisoners are sent there that are of a significant threat to society, processed obviously because, well, you've got to give them time to escape, and then dealt with in the most horrific way, where they are literally demolecularized. Of course, the fantasy setting would just say obliterated, but where they are physically reduced to nothing and their ashes are spread across 12 planes to make sure that no amount of magic will work. And the key piece of ash which will prevent the body from being brought back to life with anything except for a wish spell, which, if you're like me, they don't exist except for the gods themselves, but some kind of maximum security facility, citadel type of thing that is designed for these ultra criminals. It's very Marvel, very pulpy, but, well, you know, sometimes that just works, and your players will hear about this phenomenal prison and either want to go there or want to avoid it like the plague, but it allows us to have the warden of the prison come into town where the players are, not ask for help guarding prisoners. He will have an army of men to do that, but perhaps he might have other needs. His soldiers are isolated. Why are they isolated? I'm not entirely sure. We'll figure that one out. But again, I'm busy spinning stories as I'm drawing these mundane trees, which seem to be going on forever. But in doing so, my geography is changing and growing. So now I'm saying, well, if they're isolated, what makes them so isolated? And how has that managed to be achieved? Has some group been involved in making this isolation happen? Is there a river? Is there a what isolates them? What's different and what's interesting that isolates them? And I think I have an idea based on something that we were talking about earlier in the video. Now I've stopped recording and gone to bed and come back and I'm carrying on recording now because drawing trees takes it out of your mouse hand like no one's business. You'll also be happy to know that last night, in a fit of drawing-induced rage, I've purchased a tablet which will arrive hopefully tomorrow, and that will change things a little bit. Pen and tablet. I don't think it'll improve the drawing much. That's more of a skill than a tool-based problem, but should hopefully make these go a little bit faster. Drawing with my right hand, I'm left-handed, and drawing with the mouse is a little bit slow. I think I can go faster. Anyway, so what isolates this prison, and I think some of you are already shouting the answer if you have watched this far, I think our prison should be on a floating bit of mountainous rock. So we're going to change the pattern that we originally came up with. I think this will look like a passageway. Let's have a look. There we go. I can live with that. There's our little village in amongst the trees. And that leads up to that territory. So now our floating prison needs to sit amongst the mountains. Where am I? I'm still on Hamlet, aren't I? Well, thankfully we're not colouring this, so I'm not too particular. If you're colouring your terrain, I find it is easier to keep trees on tree layers and hamlets on hamlet layers. We already had decided this is going to be black and white. So I'm extending my mountain range to make it feel a little bit more isolated, a little bit more, mind you. Not hugely so. Prisoners will still have to get through this mountain range in order to get out of the prison. But now, here we draw an inverted mountain. That's my idea of an inverted mountain. Cap on. Chink. Crags and things. What is it hovering over? Just a piece of land? Maybe. Alright, and then we'll put the prison on top. Tower. Crenellated tower there. Maybe just for really give a sense of the enormity of this prison. So that's now our floating prison, which I quite like the look of. It looks quite complicated. And I think it's going to be floating over a pit. With mountain here and there. There to make it pit-like, and then we drop down lines there. I'm just going to darken up the center of the pit. Whoops. Control Z is your friend. Okay. Maybe the question is, how do they get up there? How do they get there? Maybe there it is. caves, or whatever the players are going to interpret it as, it doesn't matter. And then a single line which drops down there. It might not be visible, but at least we'll remember that there's a sort of a cable car type of system which is used to get prisoners up and guards and things down. So your time in this prison, whatever we're going to call it, is going to be pretty brief, to be perfectly honest with you, because to get in and out, obviously going to be a mission and a half. I wanted to do some sort of thing in here to make it look like it's something. Very good idea to have one so close to a prison, but well, there you go. Prison was built before or after, or how often do you find inverted mountains? I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? Maybe they just decided that it was worth the risk. We don't know what that portal thing does anyway, so who knows? Alright, mountain range continues and peters out after a while. Because let's be faced, any prisoner who makes it off the floating rock deserves a little bit of opportunity to actually escape. I did just want to, and now I'm all over the place this morning, but not enough coffee yet. I should have filled that up, but it looked a little bit anemic, a little bit thin. Right, so we've got our trees there, we've got that's going to take us there. We've pretty much filled up this territory up here, which I think is quite nice now. This haunting mountain range that leads to this thing, whatever that is, who knows. This floating castle, it's quite interesting, this little territory up here now. I think we've got this pathway which leads through there and will lead to the main city here, which we've still got to draw in. I think from a balance perspective our map is pretty full. I'm looking forward to what I'm going to do here. I've had an idea there. It's more trees, but it's not like these ones. It's a bit more interesting.